I think that there is an epidemic. I will call it a pandemic. The real pandemic is soft men in this country.
And call me crazy, but I am far more concerned with stepping on a used heroin needle than I am getting the coronavirus. But maybe that's just me.
I do not want to hear a daggone word from the coronavirus fearmongers out there about masks or social distancing or variants if they are unwilling to talk about the hundreds of thousands of people pouring across our border. Start there.
Fox News darling Tomi Lahren has fallen off massively since her rise to prominence during the Trump administration, but she just made a recent appearance on Fox rehashing the tired, played-out pandemic denialism talking points after Dr. Fauci testified in front of the House Oversight Committee.
And for him to sit there today and show no remorse for the lives that he ruined, the economy that's still tanking today because of those policies and that response to the COVID scamdemic, as I call it, the fact that he could sit there so smugly after all the lives that his guidance ruined and just say that, oh, maybe they simply weren't following the science or that the science changes, that's infuriating to so many Americans.
Tommy, the economy is not tanking. And the most important aspect of science is that theories, ideas, etc. do change and are supposed to change once more data becomes available, which is exactly what happened with the response to the pandemic. Now, looking back on it now in 2024, there are obviously some things that we could have done better. But that shouldn't detract from the work that Fauci and his staff did to dispel the harmful misinformation. And Dr. Fauci even said it himself during his testimony.
Early on, there was a degree, not as much as against severe disease, of protection against infection. Unfortunately, that protection against infection, which is related to transmissibility, waned rather rapidly in a matter of months. What has stood firm, well, much better than transmission and much better than infection, is the ability to prevent someone from hospitalizations and deaths. And in fact, the curves, Congresswoman, are stunning. When you look at the deaths and hospitalizations of people who are unvaccinated, it's like this. When you look at the deaths and hospitalizations for people who are vaccinated and boosted, it's like this. The difference is profound. When you're dealing with infection, again, less so because of the waning of protection against infection. When I was saying that if you attack me, you attack science, I didn't mean that I am science. What I meant was that when the data showed that hydroxychloroquine does not work, and there are people saying, oh, it does, I'll give it to people, and we know it can be hurtful to them, then when you're attacking what I'm saying, that the science shows it doesn't work, and the science shows that bleach doesn't work, that when you attack that, you really are attacking science, because science has shown that it doesn't work. That's what I meant. When you're attacking me, you're attacking science.
Despite Dr. Fauci's clear and concise answers regarding his role in the pandemic response, that didn't stop some of the most deplorable Republicans from continuing to throw dirt on this man's name.
You were quoted on CBS Face the Nation saying it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci?
I am a scientist who uses the scientific method to gain information.
Yes, you said you represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci? Yes
Again,
or no? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no answer.
Yes, it's a yes or no.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a you don't know what you represent.
Oh,
But this, as director of the NIH, you did sign off on these so-called scientific experiments. And as a dog lover, I want to tell you this is disgusting and evil, what you signed off on, and these experiments that happened to beagles paid for by the American taxpayer. And I want you to know Americans don't pay their taxes for animals to be tortured like this. So the type of science that you are representing, Mr. Fauci, is abhorrent, and it needs to stop. Mr. Fauci, you also represent the type of science where you confess that you made up the COVID rules, including
I didn't hear what you
6
said.
feet social distancing and masking of children.
I never said I made anything up.
You admitted that you made it up. You
I
made it
didn't
up
say
as you went.
I made it up.
So are you saying this is fake news, Mr. Fauci?
I didn't say I made anything up.
What did you say?
I said that it is not based in science and it just appeared.
But this is science.
What does dogs have to do with anything that we're talking about today?
These are scientific experiments. This is what you signed off on. But you also told the American people they had to distance by 6 feet. They had to wear masks. Is it right for scientists and doctors getting paid by the American people, government taxpayer paychecks, to get patents where they're paid millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in royalty fees, especially when the NIH and these government agencies, most powerful agencies in our country, are recommending medical suggestions and advice and making up guidelines like 6 feet distancing and masking of children? Do you think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. This was a time in history where you got to throw out the first pitch at the Washington Nationals baseball game while Americans were forced to stay home and watch such events that they love from at home alone on their televisions. And what a hypocrisy this picture shows. Here you are without your mask, with empty seats everywhere. Remember the cardboard cutout fans? That was one of the most insulting things to Americans, having to watch the games from home where you got to go and enjoy the game and sit right next to people not following the 6 feet of distancing, not wearing your mask, and everyone else was forced to stay home and stop enjoying life. And your science here, your science is displayed perfectly in this picture where children in school were put in plastic bubbles because of your science, your repulsive, evil science. Children all over America were forced to wear masks. Healthy children forced to wear masks, muzzled in their schools. And then they were forced to learn from home because of your so-called science and your medical suggestions, while you and all your cronies get paid from Big Pharma. You know that what this committee should be doing? We should be recommending you to be prosecuted. We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You belong in prison, Dr. Fauci.
It's very clear that MTG has a nasty attitude towards Dr. Fauci, and she has no interest in using the hearing as a way to uncover any truths, right? Or find useful information for the American people. No. She's doing this, she's acting this way because she wants to satisfy her vendetta against Dr. Fauci. So she's using the hearing as a political stunt to score points with voters. That's it. That is all she's doing, because she's not even making sense when she's up there trying to berate and demean Dr. Fauci. She really comes off as a lunatic who is out of her mind. And let's make another thing clear. Marjorie Taylor Greene's meltdown here reveals the deeper held Republican belief that the individual is more important than the collective. And this is really a stance born out of a position of privilege, which Marjorie Taylor Greene has. And the other thing, if you're this fired up, MTG, about following mandates and suggestions from the medical professionals that are put in place to benefit the greater public, then you clearly do not have a lot of other things to be mad about, and you're more focused on how you're personally affected. More focused on how you're personally affected instead of how your actions affect so many others, which is why the pandemic got out of control in the first place. And it's still going on, but it's just not talked about as much. So very selfish, and it's rich that she's talking about, Dr. Fauci needs to be in jail. He needs to be prosecuted. You support a man named Donald Trump who should be in jail for decades with all his offenses, but that's not my business. Okay? Yeah, very hypocritical, Marjorie Taylor Greene. But for Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.